live in TV land? Okay. Let me turn this on. Hello, I'm Michael Canada, Vice Chair of the Planning and Zoning Commission. I'm calling the regular meeting of our Planning and Zoning Commission for Tuesday, May 6th to order. Again, I said I'm Michael Canada, Vice Chair, and
Andrew Holt, alternate.
Brian Dufresne. John Comtois, alternate.
Nick Dimitriadis.
Mark Dufresne, alternate.
okay, I'd like a motion to seat our alternates, please.
Second.
No, you gotta make the motion.
Make them.
I'll move for it.
Oh, you move? Making a move?
Yeah, you want a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. And for tonight's meeting, I'd also like to welcome Linda Emmy, Stuart Popper, and Bruce Driska. Linda is our clerk, Stuart's our town planner, and Bruce is our ZEO. Changes to the agenda. So it looks like we have one addition for an acceptance schedule, and that would be application number, I'm looking for the,
2511.
oh, perfect, 2511. So I'd like to hear a motion to accept the agenda as amended.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, we have a accepted agenda. Now I'd like to open the floor up for public comments. If there's anyone here that would like to make a public comment? Nothing? Okay. And next, Development Compliance Officer report. Bruce?
Hi. Pretty unremarkable still because we're early in the year. We haven't been that busy. You'll see some pending items on there that we have coming up tonight and coming up to be heard in the future. Additionally, I can tell you that an issue that you took action on as a commission, which was 48 Nooks Hill Road, the berm, and you ordered the berm to be down. The berm was not down by the deadline date. So there was a request by the contractor for the property owner who had a blown hydraulic line on the heavy equipment, if he could have several days. I gave him to the end of that week, the deadline week, and he said he'd have it done by the weekend. I came in last week and it was not done, so they received 4 $150 fines. I spoke with the owner today. She's going to pay the fines, and in the meantime, we have all but one half of a bucket load of material up against the side of the building on the
West.
northeast corner, which would be the front corner closest to the
Right.
railroad bridge. That's got, like I said, a half a bucket that he's taking out of there. So for all intents and purposes, it's down.
I went by it today on my way here, and it is essentially done and down. It'd be nice if he did a little bit of cleanup, but the berm is gone.
Yeah, he's in the process of doing a little bit of cleanup there and removing some of that, he called it trim material that was stacked up.
Yeah, he's also got a couple of big stumps and a couple of big,
We spoke about that as well.
yeah, great, thank you.
Thank you. That's all I have. Any questions on anything?
Did you end up taking a look at the mini house, tiny house?
Oh, I can give you an update on, across the street, 8 Palmer Circle, on the cul-de-sac, just before you get to the dead end of the cul-de-sac. The last house on the right before the curved linear portion is a bona fide tiny house. Something that was towed there and advertised on Airbnb as a platform. And I contacted the owner and told him that what we found out was that the tiny house was towed there. So essentially it's an RV, it's a trailer. It has the towing triangle in the front, whatever you want to call that.
Oh, it does have a tongue?
The tongue
Yep.
has that still in place.
Okay,
And the wheels, and it was placed there.
so they're hidden by all the lattice work and flowers.
Yeah, the skirting kind of hides
Gotcha.
that. So I made them aware that our regulations do not permit the RV to be occupied while it's on the premises, although it could be stored there, but that defeats the purpose of what she wants. So right now, we're exploring the fact that come June 2nd, when our new regs are effective, and the accessory dwelling unit is allowed, that she might be able to qualify under that if she meets the setbacks, and if she can permanently mount it according to the building inspector's requirements. That might entail having a structural engineer certify that the steel frame is worthy to be placed on a slab or on piers.
So does she have, if it does become an ADU, does she have the right side yard and front yard setback?
So we discussed that R-15 setbacks today, and she says that she was aware of that and that she does currently meet that.
Okay.
Right, so we need to have that verified or certified somehow.
Yeah.
I don't know whether by a survey or however we would do it, but it needs to be verified because that's an important portion of the new reg.
Right, and what about her water and sewer and power hookups?
That we haven't got to yet.
Okay, okay,
Getting to the larger items first before we get to
Gotcha.
how that
Okay.
might work. My assumption is that right now she's not hooked up on any hard lines to water sewer, that it might just be because it's a RV that it's pumped and filled.
that's interesting.
Again, I'm just assuming, I don't know.
Okay,
There was no permit taken by sewer, and there's no evidence of a trench going to the house for said work.
gotcha. So, here's a dumb question, maybe not so dumb. If it becomes an ADU, as an ADU, does it need to meet all of the building codes? And the reason I ask it is they posted a bunch of pictures online. And it's a cute little tiny house inside. I gotta say, what they did is not offensive. But you've got stairs going up to a little loft area. You've only got the one entrance in front. None of the windows appear to meet fire egress requirements.
Yeah.
The stairs rise and run are way outside of anything normal. It's more like a ladder.
Noticed that as well. Yeah.
In addition, the railings don't even come close to meeting any of the residential railing requirements. So I'm just wondering how, with an ADU, if it's basically a converted trailer.
I think it would have to be building code requirements.
Yeah, I do too, I agree.
I did speak with the building official, and as Stuart said, it does have to meet, so, I'm in the process of drafting a letter as a follow-up to today's telephone conversation to the property owner and letting them know that it has to pass muster with the building official, or they'll probably end up having to remove it because it can't be an RV.
Right.
It can't be occupied.
Right.
And that's the intent, so.
Right, right. It's an interesting problem. Okay, thank you very
I'll
much,
keep you
Bruce.
updated.
Yep, thank you. And Mr. Popper.
So, the Crispy Cannabis Retail Facility opened on Saturday. And, so, if anybody drives by, they call it Crispy, it's called Crispy, KRS.
See.
So, anyway, it's open. I talked with the police. There was no massive lines of people there Saturday lining up. A couple of times I've driven by there today and I haven't seen anybody there. So, there's lots of cannabis retailers out there. It's not the first one in the state. So I don't expect anything unusual there. He put up a number of signs directing people where to park. Asking people to be a good neighbor and not park in his neighbor's parking lot. So, that's what's kind of happening. So we'll see.
Good.
We'll see how much actual traffic he generates. I'm sure he'd love it if he generated all the traffic in the world, but, we'll just have to wait and see what happens.
What are the chances of getting the Cromwell Historical District sign that sits dead in front of that building moved?
Pardon me?
That just doesn't seem right. The Cromwell Historic District.
Well, that's on state property. That's on state property.
It just has like,
look into relocating.
that's just a weird,
It's actually a good location.
welcome to
It was
Cromwell.
actually a good location. It's one of the few that are on 372 where you have enough room where you could place a sign that meets DOT requirements. So that's actually why it's there. Because they have concerns about a sign being so close to 372. But we'll look into it. Middlesex Hospital Office Building is moving along. We're very excited about that. We've got a new Mexican restaurant that opened up at Main Street. Everybody said it's really good. I knew that, but people that have been there told me it's really good. So we're excited about that. And those are some of the things going on. Obviously, we're heading into summer and all the ice cream places will be busy. Now we have 3 ice cream places in town.
3.
3.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah, we got Woody's,
Woody's
Willowbrook.
and Cromwell, and Tallman's, right. Cromwell Creamery is,
Still there. That's the one in.
that's the one,
Willowbrook.
okay, they used to be opposite McDonald's, right? Or did that one
No,
close up?
That was a different one.
That was Morton's, wasn't that Morton's?
Yeah, that's right.
Okay, and that's gone?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Yeah, so it'll be summertime, all those people will be out. Farmers Market opens May sixth, so, it's an exciting time of the year, not May sixth, later this week. But it's an exciting time of the year. So I don't know if anybody's got any questions. Obviously, the TPC's coming,
Mm-hmm.
and I was in a meeting with them today. They were talking about some of the different vendors we're gonna have, so that'll be exciting. So they're very excited, but they were gonna have top 10 golfers in the world, so it's gonna be an exciting, exciting tournament.
They've been making some very nice press releases, and they are referring to Cromwell as a very welcoming town, and they've been very complimentary to the town. And they're actually referring to Cromwell and not saying it's the Greater Hartford or whatever. So we're getting our name on the,
That's good.
yeah, and like I said, Nathan Grube is being very complimentary. Okay.
So those are some of the things going on. I don't know if anybody's got any questions or anything. And then we have a bunch of new applications, and we'll go through and accept those and schedule those. So we're ready for new business?
Yep.
So we have application 2505, application for site plan modification to include a new sign and a shed at the Cromwell Middle School. This is the new Cromwell Middle School at 9 Captain Mann Memorial Drive. So I would ask the commission schedule this and have it be heard at the first meeting in June. And we'll take it from there. So I ask for a motion.
Okay, what is the, what's the date on that? June 3rd? So that's 6/3. Okay, so I'm looking for a motion to accept and schedule application 2505 to be heard on June 3rd, and that will be a public hearing.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that's one down.
Okay, application 2506, this is an application to amend the zoning map from the current R25 zone to R15 zone at 2 Brookview. And I apologize if it doesn't say Brookview, it's Brookview Road or Brookview Street. Anybody know?
I don't know.
Yeah, okay.
That's up the top and back of the,
Going up top, not quite up top though.
right, but it's in Evergreen, I believe it's called,
Yeah,
correct?
and these two parcels were basically,
It's a road.
left out of, for some reason, the zoning mix there, because they're surrounded by the R15.
Mm-hmm,
So rezoning them would blend it into R15.
okay.
So
Sure.
I ask you to accept and schedule that, for the first meeting in June.
Okay, so that's 6/3 again,
And that'll be a public hearing.
and that is a public hearing. Okay, so I'm looking for a motion to accept and schedule application 2506 to be heard on 6/3, and that will be a public hearing.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Then
And
we have
next,
application 25-7, application to amend the zoning map from the current R25 zone to R15 zone at 1 Brookview.
same deal, public hearing,
Yep,
6/3.
Yep.
Okay. So I'm looking for a motion to accept and schedule application 25-7 on 6/3, again for a public hearing.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And lastly,
Lastly, we have the application that I added to the agenda this evening. So I ask for a motion to schedule application number 25-11, which is a site plan modification, which would be a business item. And we could hear it on, June 3rd, or if, probably more likely June 3rd, because, we're gonna have some discussion with them regarding the application. The drainage plan has to be reviewed, there's
Okay, and, that is also a public hearing?
No,
No, it's not.
it's a site plan modification.
Okay, staff. Okay, so I'm looking for what do you call it? Motion, thank you. Having a brain meltdown. Motion to accept and schedule application 25-11, for June 3rd.
So moved.
In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
You guys got the trifectas on the motion, motions?
Got 'em all.
We're gonna keep it easy.
Okay, next item on the agenda is new business, and we have none.
We have no new business, thank you.
And the next item on the agenda is public hearing, and that is for application 2504. That's a special permit to allow for the construction of a garage addition over 1,000 square feet at 5 Meadow Road. Peter Corta is the applicant, and Peter and Rachel Corta are the owners. And we need the
Here's a copy of the legal notice.
legal notice read.
Literally just after the picture of the proposed shed.
Okay. You on it, Nick?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I had it, thanks. I'll find this. All right, here we go. Thank you, Jonathan. All right. Town of Cromwell Planning and Zoning Commission legal notice. The Town of Cromwell Planning and Zoning Commission will hold a public hearing on Tuesday, May 6th, 2025, at 7 p.m. in the Town Council Chambers of the Cromwell Town Hall at 41 West Street on the following items. 1. Application 25-04, application for a special permit, Article 2.7, A.4, to allow for the construction of a garage addition over 1,000 square feet at 5 Meadow Road. Peter Corta is the applicant, and Peter and Rachel Corta are the owners. At the meeting, interesting persons may appear to be heard and written testimony received. This application is available for public inspection in the office of the town planner, Alice Kelly, Chairman, dated in Cromwell, Connecticut, this 18th day of April 2025.
Thank you, Nick, and now I'm looking for a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
In favor? Opposed? And we're open. Sir, it's all yours.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Pete Corda of 5 Meadow Road. I am the owner, along with my wife. And as I start, I would like to present both the affidavit that I had my sign up for 14 days prior to tonight's meeting, as well as the receipts and proof of my certified mailings. I don't know. Right over there. All right. You're welcome. So I have pictures of the signs as well on the affidavit. I will talk about the project first, show you a few more documents that I have, and then open up to obviously any questions you guys would like to offer. On the survey that I had done, which you should all have copies of, I can also pass around this. My home is obviously located right in the center, and I have an existing garage. It's a 2-car garage, and I'm looking to add essentially a 3rd car on the side of it. Combined garage space of what is existing plus what I'm hoping to do comes to just over 1,000 square feet. It's about 1,056. I already have received my variance for my side yard setback. I've gone through that process and I have that approval with me as well if you'd like a copy. And I'm really just looking to achieve some more space. I have a few cars that sit in the driveway because one of my garage spaces is full of kids' toys and bikes and things like that. I have a couple of renderings that I can pass around if you guys would like. We can start right here. The house is a vinyl siding. It's a pale yellow. It's colonial style, 2-car facing the front. I'm looking to add a 3rd to the direct left, as you'll see in the picture. Same siding, same garage door, same style. It'll be set back about 1 foot, so then the roof could be underneath the existing roof, so we don't have to tie things in together. I'm going to use the same shingles. On the side of the garage, I have a human door and a window currently. I will have a window on the side and a human door on the rear for access to my backyard. I do also have a letter from my direct neighbor in support of this, if I can enter it in for, I guess, official record, if anybody wants to see it or read it, or I can read it out loud.
It would be good if you read it into the record.
Sure, absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you.
Support of Pete Corda special permit. Dear Town of Cromwell Zoning Board Commission, my name is Robert Simonowski, and I live at 3 Meadow Road in Cromwell. I have lived at this address since I built my house in the mid-1990s. I am writing this letter today because I couldn't offer my presence in person, but I wanted to express my support of the special permit for my neighbor, Pete Corda. I feel that what he is requesting, to build a garage addition that will cause his total garage space to be larger than 1,000 square feet, would be a compliment to the aesthetics of the neighborhood and is a very reasonable request. Pete has always been a gracious and helpful neighbor to everyone in the neighborhood, and I'm sure that everyone would agree that this is something that we would not object to. If I can be of any help or offer any additional information regarding my support for Pete, please don't hesitate to give me a call. My cell is 860-227-6006. Sincerely, Robert Simonowski.
Great, thank you.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's gonna come later. Okay, commission members, does anyone have any questions?
I just saw that the town engineer had a question with, regarding the, you're gonna expand the driveway in front of the garage as well?
Correct.
Okay.
Anyone else?
Pretty cut and dry, I think.
Yeah.
It'll be overcomplicated.
No.
Yeah, I'd open it up to the public for questions, but we have no public. So, that's a good thing, by the way. So, that being said, I'd like a motion to close the public hearing.
Make a motion to close the public hearing.
And Stuart, is there any condition? Oh, I'm sorry, those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Done. Stuart, is there any condition that we need to attach regarding the town
Yeah, the only-
engineer's
Yeah, I mean,
requests?
I would look at the town engineer's request and ask them to, you know, so basically what the town engineer is concerned about is the plan shows an addition.
Yeah.
I'll read his memo. The plan shows a garage addition on the north side of the house. There is no indication of a driveway expansion to accommodate the garage door exit. There is no grading information to indicate how the runoff coming onto the property will be handled against the proposed foundation wall or an expanded driveway. If the addition requires a footing drain, it should be shown on the plan as well. So I think we should just make that a condition of approval, that information be shown on the plan.
Okay, so someone,
And they can consult with John as well, right?
Yeah.
Is that gonna be staff?
Yeah, staff, would be a staff review.
So you don't wanna make any condition, you would just wanna recommend that he go back to staff?
What do you think?
I'm,
We can make it a condition.
usually we make a condition, that the application gets approved with the condition that the letter of John Harriman dated 4/7/2025, be addressed by the applicant. Is that okay, Stuart?
Yeah, that's fine, thank you.
Is everyone okay with that?
That's what I was getting to with that.
Okay.
Okay, I'll make a motion to approve with the condition that the town engineer approves, the plan with the driveway attached to it.
Yeah.
Meeting all the requirements of the town engineer.
And a second to that?
I'll second.
And we have a second, and all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Pete, you can take the sign down.
Okay. Approval of minutes. I checked for attendance on who attended the meeting for the approval of minutes, and we do not have the proper number of people here for that. So we will not be able to approve the minutes of April 15th. That being said, do we have any commissioners' comments?
Yeah, I sent an email out, last week that I wanted to get on the agenda to do a small discussion on that. The affordable housing that was presented to the River Cog. So I could do it here, right? Should I do it, commissioners' comments?
Sure, we're early. We need to vacate this room after the budget vote, so we have an hour.
Oh, this won't take more than 10 or 15 minutes.
Fire away.
All right.
If you keep me here an hour.
If I keep you here an hour, it's only because you're asking too many questions.
That won't end well, trust me.
So can I plug my laptop in?
Sure.
I guess I have to go to the.
Do you need wires?
Yeah, I guess, I don't know. Sure. Yeah, I mean, I didn't know how many plugs you take. I mean, it's not wireless?
Come on, it's only new.
You know, if it was wireless, think of the fun somebody could have sitting out in the parking lot.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not.
Get some interesting things on that screen.
Oh, yeah.
I'm not sure. Just because it's corded, I don't think there's any, I think they could probably still do that.
Probably.
I don't know, no, I don't think they could. If it's not open to Wi-Fi.
They'd have to do it through the person's computer connected
Right.
to the cord.
Hmm.
Be the only way.
Do I need to, It popped up, right?
Sounds like we'll have to do this next meeting.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, yeah.
Just so happens to
June
be my
3rd 's got a lot
25th
going
wedding
on.
anniversary, and I'm not gonna be here.
Oh.
Yeah. Thank you. 25 years.
Can't believe it.
Hey. You know everyone's listening, right?
Mom.
She can go back and look at it now, too. Listen, it's all there.
We'll just have to take your word for it.
Switching on your external speakers. Yeah, it should be just two, one of them two. I don't know why it's not working. We normally just do two.
Review presentations on Tuesday, make sure all TVs are on HDMI one.
Yep.
Blue stream box may go to sleep after a period of time.
Here we go. Taking away at the hour.
Need to like practice
Select
this.
input one on the remote or buttons on blue stream. Once input
we gotta
and
restart.
stream.
Restart there. Oh, there's something going on.
It's just powering up.
Talk about South
Is
New
it
York.
supposed to go through HDMI one?
South New York.
At night.
I mean, all we did before was just switch it to two and it just went.
There you go, so what do you got there?
Oh, we got something going on.
No, that's just.
Oh.
Is it, it's on HDMI one right now, I don't know if it's supposed to be HDMI one.
It is. That's what she read, yeah.
Nick, do you have to do anything to share your screen?
I shouldn't have to, I should just plug right in.
Does that TV need to be on?
In.
Does that one need, do they own the far one?
I don't think so.
It says, unable to access the internet on the TV, it just popped up.
HDMI one.
It should be rendering because mine we have to
Operate each TV separately, we can't make it so they all.
Yeah, it should be all on.
No, it says unable to access.
Shouldn't be an internet thing.
It doesn't say. Stupid.
No input signal detected. There it is.
There we go.
Oh,
Cause the,
So
so we got both TVs.
what he's plugged
All
into,
three,
Zero.
what he's plugged into over there,
yeah.
it goes to sleep after a certain amount of time if no one uses it. So once you unplugged it and plugged it back in, it restarted it. Now it's good to go.
two on, that's good, three on, we're good, go ahead.
Take
All right,
notes.
thank you. So, give you an update. Last Monday, there was
Hey, Nick.
Lower River.
Do you wanna grab the mic?
Sure.
Because that way people in TV land will be able to.
This one?
Sure.
Testing.
Thank you.
This is exciting. All right. All right, thank you. So last Monday, I attended the Lower River Valley Conference meeting that we had. And one of the main topics of discussion was the fair share housing study that was being performed and how it could possibly affect those different municipalities within the Lower River Valley region. And Stuart, if you're aware of any, inputs or any items that I missed based on any meetings you've had, please feel free to add as I go along or at the end. Yep. So there have been a number of discussions that have taken place at the Capitol over the last several months regarding this fair share housing study. So here's some background that I'll give you. I think many of us already know this, but since 1989, there was Section 8-30 of the Connecticut General Statutes was an affordable housing land use appeal procedure. So I'm not going to read all the slide. I'm just going to kind of paraphrase because these are the kind of background things. And I can send you a copy of the slide pack later, Stuart, and we can distribute it if you want. But, so 8-30 is generally the affordable housing land use procedures. It includes appeals for overriding local zoning regulations, denial of affordable proposals without just cause. So we've been through that a couple times where we've made decisions on special permits and things, and we had to go to court, and so we scheduled something today because of that. That happened years ago. So these are some provisions that were in place to help municipalities move forward with affordable housing. So there was an acknowledgement at that time by the legislature that it required a more appropriate tool. So the legislature adopted a Section 8-30J in 2017. And J requires every Connecticut municipality to prepare and adopt an affordable housing plan once every 5 years, and which we did, by the way. And it's part of the overall affordable housing plan that we could find in the Lower River Valley COG documents that are on their website. So if you went and looked at the affordable housing plan for our region, then you'll see Cromwell's is in there. The final was adopted on 6/21/22. So what that requires is that each municipality put together a plan of how they propose to meet these affordable housing goals that are part of 8-30G and now J, right? J is the plan. So then on October 1st, 2023, there was a public act, 23-207, that directed the Connecticut Office of Policy and Management to study the potential options for a methodology to be used to calculate what they're calling a fair share housing allocation. The basis for the state fair share housing study is called Open Community Alliance Fair Share Model, a proposed bill which did not pass but resulted in Section 18 of Public Act 23-207, which requires OPM, Department of Housing, DOH, and DECD to develop a fair share methodology for calculating and allocating housing needs based on the OCA, the Open Communities Alliance Fair Share Model. So OPM contracted a company called Econ Northwest, which was from the West Coast, to perform a housing study here and make recommendations to the General Assembly. So the Econ study described the three approaches, and it was just recently completed in January, and they're going to be providing their input to the legislature. But the Econ study described three approaches in estimating the housing needs: a baseline approach, as directed in the Public Act, and also two alternate approaches using different methodologies for how to achieve a number, for example, of what these fair share housing requirements would be for each municipality. So the econ study estimates of the current housing need in Connecticut focus solely on the current need. It's not a future projection, it's on the current projection. And the number of units, which is different than households, number of units, which I believe are houses, that should be built to better balance the supply and demand. So the report proposed 3 methodologies, and the estimated range for these in methodologies was from 115 to 372,000 household units, depending on which methodology you use. So they're saying there's a deficit in our lower Connecticut Valley region of affordable housing, starting from Cromwell going all the way down to the coastline, whatever the municipalities those 12 are. So those are the numbers. Again, I'm just using these large numbers because that's what's presented as far as the approach for how these would be divvied up. So the baseline approach, which is the one required by statute, was the 136,246. And that, again, focuses on the housing needs of household earnings less than 30% of the average medium income who are severely cost burdened. In other words, spending more than 50% of their income on housing. So the baseline approach is using the model that the legislature was initially looking at with the Open Communities Alliance. So that's the going in position of the number of housing units that would be required. So that's what the legislature asked for, and that's what the study provided. They also provided an alternative approach, which offered considerably different numbers. And the way it looked at the housing needs, again, was considering housing underproduction and focus on housing needs for households earning less than 80% of the area median income. So that's a population that's smaller because they make less money, basically. So that was another model that they used. And an alternate approach number 2, which you can see is much larger, and it's units statewide, considered current households underproduction and identifies housing needs for all income levels. So while the first 2 tried to generate numbers based on income levels, this one was basically, we think, how many housing units do we really need in order for everybody to be able to achieve some type of an affordable housing baseline within our state. So again, this is just a depiction of a needs assessment baseline of the model, the OCA model, and it just tells you how they calculated the number. Now, I did not go into a lot of detail in trying to figure out how all these numbers work because somebody already did that for me. So I'm presenting you the information we have. So if you do have questions on these numbers and how they're put together or whatever, I could take some time and get someone either to help me answer them or to come in and answer them somehow through a virtual session or something. Because most of the information you see here is based on my independent research, but it's also based on a lot of the work that RiverCog has already done. So I'm taking some of their things, summarizing them a little more simply as opposed to these real detailed drop-downs that they did. So, but all this information is basically from the RiverCog, plus going into the public statutes and the different documents that were available. At the end, I'll have all my footnotes, so you'll see those too. So it tells you, this is just a formula. It tells you how they got to the numbers that they got to. I don't spend a lot of time on that, but it'll be in the pack, so if you wanted to play around with numbers, you can do that. So this is what I thought was the most interesting slide that I saw. And you can see the differences, and there's based on the allocations of the 3 approaches, right? So if you look at the baseline, right? So what they're saying is, for example, the 3rd line down after the top heading is that they're talking about existing units that fall within the possibility of this range of affordable housing. And they're saying that we need to supply or build 323 more units using the open communications model, the OCA, using baseline 1, 377 units using approach A, which is the 80% medium income, and 570 more units than what we already have in town to be able to achieve approach B, which is all income levels across all units. So you'll look at the numbers here, and they break them down by the different municipalities, and how many, these are the proposed numbers of units by town in the River Cog. So they're saying that this fair share study plan is saying that we Cromwell, all things being equal, given the baseline OCA, is that we are deficient or need to build 323 more affordable housing units, or make available 323 more affordable housing units in our town to meet the standards of the goals of the fair share plan. But again, this is the plan, so I'm going to get into that in just a second. So to go back, the legislature in October commissioned a study. A company called Econ from the West Coast came in and performed the study. They delivered that information to the legislature in January. So this study offers them suggestions and numbers of how affordable housing could possibly be achieved using just analytics, saying, you know, here's how many each town needs, and how they would build them is a different story. But this is how many each town needs. Now, that's just the plan, and here's what needs to be done now. So there's an implementer bill that needs to be established, right? So you have a commission, you have a plan, now you need to implement it. Well, that's not what the Fair Share Study plan did. It was just the plan. This is the implementer. So one of the things I was able to glean, I think, from all the things that I read through the River Cog, that, for example, this HB 6944, an act requiring a municipality to include certain information in its affordable housing plan. And you could read the bullets there. I'm not going to read each one. But this may be a possible implementer. So when you hear House bills being discussed and having on the floor or in the news, then you see 6944, you may want to pay particular attention to the fact that Ms. Baby, an implementer for either the baseline or one of the other two approaches for affordable housing in our, it's a statewide plan, but for our region specifically in the town of Cromwell. So we need to keep an eye on that. The biggest concern that I have, and I brought it up in our last meeting, when we were talking generally about affordable housing, and I agree, I think we need affordable housing, but there's a by right language in there that's included in the discussion. And by right means that it can, correct me if I'm wrong, Stuart, but by right means that it's an administrative process. There's no special permit process. There's the zoning regulations as we know them are I'm going to say bypassed, for lack of a better word.
It's
and
like,
it becomes
it's like the uses you have, for example, in a single family law. They're by right.
By right.
You can have a shed, you can have a garage, you can have it by right.
So that would bypass the processes we would have normally for when people make applications, right, for building, like we're seeing on Court Street and other areas that we've had, right? One of the comments that they made, and I may have to get some more elaboration on that from the River Cog, is that one of the gentlemen there, I don't want to mention his name because I don't want to misrepresent what he said, but my understanding was that there is a possibility that we could, as a town, get ahead of it, not to stop it from going forward, but we could get ahead of it by trying to put regulations or language in place for these by right processes, where if we have some regulations ahead of time built into the administrative review process, similar to what we do with the zoning regs, that we may be able to put some of those to at least put some type of a balance of who's coming in and who's building what where. So I'll find out more information. That's a separate topic of discussion, but that's something that I think we would need to talk about as a commission, and obviously with our town planner, Stuart, Bruce, and there may be more people involved, John Harriman, I don't know. But I think that's a larger discussion that has to take place, but I'm going to try and find out a little bit more information on that. This last bullet about establishing regulations or administrative process around the by right issue. Much of this stuff is on the River Cog site. So if you went onto there on the River Cog, you could find some of these documents out there, the basic documents, and the response from the River Cog to the legislature. So, in closing, these results, right? The results that we talked about here today for the Fair Share Plan, were shared with the General Assembly for Planning and Development, for the Housing and Planning and Development Committee, and that was on June 30th, based on the notes that I had from the last meeting I was in. So the Assembly members are expected to provide feedback on their approaches, as well as the methods to allocate units from regions to local jurisdictions. So here's my ask, as a commission member, and something I think I would like to ask you all to consider. And I know Alice isn't here tonight, but I would like to request that we as the P&Z Commission, through our chair and through our town planner, possibly Board of Selectmen and Mayor, contact our legislative representatives and ask them for their comments and positions on the Fair Share Plan and the Implementer Act. I haven't heard a peep about it in the news. I don't know if that's purposeful or not, but I think if they're going to pass legislation that's going to affect our region and our town, it would be good to have a perspective of what our representatives are saying about it, what they think or feel. And I don't think it would be out of school to ask for maybe for them to take a few minutes and come to one of our meetings and present their thoughts about it, where we can Q&A them. You know, I just would put that out on the table. I don't need we need the decision today, but maybe that's a discussion we could have at our next meeting. I'll put this packet together and send it to Stuart, so I don't want to get into any trouble with disseminating information outside. It's not a public hearing, so I don't want to get into any issues with that. So there's Q&A, and this is just the resources I used. They're all public resources, so there's nothing hidden here. If you took these resources and went out and Googled them, you'll go to the legislative sites or the different RiverCog sites that talk about the housing initiatives that are taking place, the assessments of needs and all those things. So there's nothing secret here. All this is public information. So, and this is again from part of it's from a presentation from the RiverCog, part of it is from additional research that I had done and wanted to present, so that y'all had a picture of what's happening. And I can't emphasize enough how I, as a commissioner, and I'm hoping you agree, that we don't want to get stuck in a position having to support or act on something where we haven't had a voice in the process. And my understanding, there aren't going to be any public hearings on any of this too. So I think it's important for us to get in front of it. I would turn it back over to you, Chair Mike Canada. Any questions from the group, or how you want to go next? So,
I have a question for you in terms of how they came up with that 300 and something, what was it, 350 something?
yeah, the 352, yeah.
What was it, 353?
358.9.
Okay, so in the 358.9, how did they, I guess what I'm asking is,
Yep.
all of the units that we have in town, Cromwell Hills, Cromwell Gardens, Fox Meadows, et cetera, that may meet the criteria of affordable housing, but are not registered as affordable housing. None of those got taken into consideration?
That I can't answer. Let me see, base allocations, approach A, approach B. So,
Because we've had the same conversation before, that based on the rents of those units, they probably meet all of the guidelines of affordable housing, but they're not in any of the counts because they're not registered as affordable housing.
so I think, right, so I brought up on the screen from the allocation summary, how they came up with that number. I'd have to find out more information to see that. But here's the sources that they used.
Yeah, so there's Cromwell at, where are we? So they're saying we need 323 more units.
Right, now,
But I'm wondering
you're asking
whether
what the
or not
formula is, right?
we already have it.
Right.
They're just not
Because it's not
correctly,
registered.
correctly being counted.
Would they have to be set aside as
affordable housing, as in they have to meet the income guidelines?
They'd have to meet the income guidelines.
Yeah,
right?
but I mean, a lot of our apartments in town do meet the income guidelines.
But the renters.
But the renters don't.
So the re-
Well, either the renters don't or the owners of those apartments don't wanna register them as affordable because they don't wanna be burdened with the paperwork and have the state in their books. And you can't blame them for that, but at the end of the day, if it adversely affects our numbers, that isn't fair either.
But this is, again, to reach those numbers, I believe it's over a 10-year period. So it's not something that has to be done tomorrow. So
No, I get it.
Yeah.
But I'm saying that if the count isn't correct, then the result is not gonna be
Well,
correct.
the Rivercog guys are saying that they aren't agreeing with the way they came up with the counts either, and they propose, there's a proposal, they have an alternative, but I'm not gonna pretend to tell you I understand the
No, I get
formula
it.
that
I get it.
they use.
So I guess my position would be, before we can logically come up with any action plan, we need to logically understand how they counted and whether or not their count is truly representative of what we have for affordable housing stock.
Does somebody oversee their count? Like, is there like an overseeing, like, audit body that says,
Not
yeah,
that-
you did it right or you did it wrong?
The only people that I know, for example, is the Rivercog did their own assessment. They did their own assessment, so no, short answer is no. I didn't see anything or read anything that challenged those numbers other than the municipalities or the regional municipalities that said, we don't agree with the way you did these. Let me see if I can find that one.
Stu, how many units are in Court Street project?
Court Street project is 60 units. None of them are affordable.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that was the court agreement. Remember, I mean, a lot of times the whole point of coming in with an affordable housing plan is to get the town to come to some kind of compromise. And ironically, he basically got the same number of units that he had planned for with his first application, which some of the new members don't understand was denied because he was constructing a driveway to an existing residential house.
That's too close.
Which was less than 50 feet.
Right.
And he asked for a waiver of it. He wanted to put the driveway 13 feet from the house. Because he owned a little piece of land, if you're driving up Court Street before you get to the light, next to his office building, that he wanted to preserve for some reason as a building lot. So,
That's right. I
so
remember that now.
ironically, after we spent all this time and money in court, he got the same application approved that he would've got approved if his driveway was in the proper location.
Yeah.
I mean, it was pretty insane. This went on for years.
So how about the Red Line property? Are there some affordable back
We're
there?
still, no, there's 10%. There was like 26 units.
Well, I still am of the opinion that the number that we have in existence is not being correctly counted.
But,
How quickly do we need to, move on the, what do they call it, by right language that we would need
Well,
to construct?
it's been in process for weeks. I mean, I don't know if.
So how quickly would we have to move on that here?
I think we'd have to have those discussions with Stuart and I would imagine the mayor and selectmen about how it's an administrative process. Maybe the town manager has to get involved. Because what they were suggesting with the Rivercog, Sam was suggesting, is that if we wanted to get ahead of it, we would somehow have to put some administrative process within that by right. Right, I think Stuart alluded to single-family housing by right, you can put a garage, but, so we would have to put some additional steps there. They can't be zoning regs, but they can be something to kind of put a box around this a little bit, to not slow it down, but to get some regulation or, process behind it,
Right.
so we aren't building just anything anywhere.
Yeah, we're not getting it rammed down our throat either.
Yeah, which is,
That's it in a nutshell, let's
That's
face
it,
it.
yeah. And it would be nice to see what our legislative representatives are talking about too, what their thoughts are on this, because this is a pretty big nut for us, or for our town. Now, we're ahead of the game as far as, we have a number of units that we think are affordable. And we're working all the time. The new development on 372, we ask for affordable housing. So we're always trying to push for affordable housing. somehow we have to figure out how to meet these numbers. I put that, item up there that I was talking about. Sam Gold is the chairman of our River Cog, and I'll include this in the packet that we send around, but all the links that I have at the footnotes, I'll try and put links next to them too, so it's easier to, but I just put those in there as footnote, references. But, you know, the River Cog is strongly in opposition of Bill 6944. And that's the reason why. I'm not gonna read the whole thing, but, it's talking about the affordability of building these units, how they're gonna be built, what they consider 50% of AMI or less, and how they cannot be produced without public subsidies. It's not realistic to expect the market to build housing, you know, to be able to, construction costs, your construction. I mean, how do you
Lose
build,
money, yeah.
how do you build a house and then sell it under cost?
It's called bankruptcy.
Right, that's the point that,
Yeah.
that we were making in the river, not I, but he was making at the River Cog.
Yeah.
It's all fine and well, and they agree with the goals. It's just that, you know, you can't have, nobody's gonna come in and build something and then sell it under cost,
No.
unless you get public subsidies, so, anyways.
Is that the big play? Cause I feel like it is.
Could
It's
be.
just being set up as they already know the map and how it's gonna get done.
I think the people putting this together failed a couple of times over the last few years about putting these fair shares, and so they were able to do 830G, which was there for a while, but now they did 830J, which requires us to do affordable housing, and now they're saying, well, here's a plan, right? How do we implement this plan? Well, here's the rules for implementing the plan, and here's the numbers you have to reach, and you know, in 10 years, and there's a lot of, you know, towns downriver of us that, you know, don't have the facilities. Once you get out of Middletown and Cromwell, some of the towns down there don't have public sewers and systems to be able to handle some of this.
We've heard it over and over and over again. It's called unfunded mandates.
Right. So that's where, again, I think that it's important for us, try and get ahead of this as best as we can. And I would, again, encourage, Mike, maybe you talk to Alice. I'll send this out, Stuart, if I can, to you, and I'll send a couple extra documents. I'll send it to Stuart. I'll copy Alice and you, but I'm not the whole commission, and then you all can distribute it as you think appropriate, or put it somewhere where we can all get to it. But I would suggest that maybe, you know, maybe by our June meeting, that we can see if we can get one of our legislative representatives to talk to us about it. But again, I don't wanna bypass any other process here, but it's of concern, cause we're gonna get stuck having to do something, and it's gonna put a lot of binders on us. And I think we have been, more than accommodating in trying to figure out how to get affordable housing into our town. And I think we have our formula. I think the formula is flawed as well, because I think we have a number of units that are affordable housing. Now, the 10% is the minimum number that they look for. I think we hit that, but Stuart's, let's not do it today, but I'm sure we can have arguments on how we meet it or don't.
I agree with you. The formula's flawed, the count is flawed, and the unfunded mandate is flawed. So that it's kind of like a piece of Swiss cheese, it's riddled with mistakes. And none of them are good.
I agree.
Yeah, I agree. I get it to Stuart so that Stuart can,
Yep.
disseminate it to all of us. We gotta figure it out. We gotta get ahead of it before it gets ahead of us.
And look up some of those sites. If there's things I missed or didn't explain well, you can go and look at them yourselves and, you know, kind of make more out of them than, you know, again, this was just a high-level 15-minute overview of what's going on, so.
It's good.